The Seeker's Lamp Podcast. Season 1, Episode 9. The Firstborn of Abraham. I will discuss the passage where Ishmael and his mother were sent away by Abraham because of Sarah. I will also tell how Ishmael and his mother were saved and the promise God made about Ishmael's descendants. I will quote from the King James Version of the Bible. I will also briefly discuss the Jewish, Christian, and Muslim views of Ishmael. Ishmael was the son of Abraham and Hagar, Sarah's Egyptian slave. Sarah was barren and gave Hagar to Abraham as a surrogate mother. However, when Hagar conceived, she despised Sarah and Sarah mistreated her. Hagar fled to the desert, where an angel of the Lord found her and told her to return to Sarah and submit to her. The angel also said that God would multiply her descendants exceedingly and that she would bear a son named Ishmael, meaning, God hears. Genesis 16 verses 1 to 15. Ishmael grew up in Abraham's household, but he was not the son of promise. God had promised Abraham that he would have a son with Sarah, even in their old age. This son would be Isaac, meaning, laughter, because both Abraham and Sarah laughed when they heard God's promise. Isaac was born when Abraham was 100 years old and Sarah was 90. Genesis 17 verses 15 to 21, 18 verses 9 to 15, 21:1-7. On the day Isaac was weaned, Abraham made a great feast. But Sarah saw Ishmael mocking Isaac, and she said to Abraham, "Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac." Genesis 21 verse 10 KJV. This grieved Abraham greatly, because he loved Ishmael. But God told him to listen to Sarah, because Isaac was the son through whom his offspring would be reckoned. God also said that he would make Ishmael into a great nation, because he was Abraham's offspring too. Genesis 21 verses 11 to 13. So Abraham rose up early in the morning, and gave Hagar some bread and a bottle of water, and sent her away with Ishmael. They wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba, until the water was gone. Then Hagar put Ishmael under a shrub and sat down a distance away from him, saying, "Let me not see the death of the child." Genesis 21 verse 16 KJV. She wept bitterly, but God heard the voice of Ishmael. The angel of God called out to Hagar from heaven and said, "What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thine hand, for I will make him a great nation." Genesis 21 verses 17 to 18 KJV. Then God opened Hagar's eyes and she saw a well of water. She filled the bottle with water and gave Ishmael a drink. God was with Ishmael as he grew up. He lived in the desert of Paran and became an archer. His mother got him a wife from Egypt. Genesis 21 verses 19 to 21. The Bible does not tell us much more about Ishmael's life, except that he had 12 sons who became princes of their tribes. They dwelt from Havilah to Shur, near Egypt. Genesis 25 verses 12 to 18, Ishmael also came together with Isaac to bury their father Abraham when he died at 175 years old. Genesis 25 verses 7 to 10. Ishmael is considered the ancestor of many Arab nations, especially those who practice Islam. How does Islam's view of Ishmael differ from Judaism and Christianity? Ishmael was the first son of Abraham, the common patriarch of the Abrahamic religions. Ishmael is regarded by both Jews and Arabs as the progenitor of the Ishmaelites or Arabs, but his role and status in the three religions vary significantly. In Judaism, Ishmael is seen as a rival and a threat to Isaac and his descendants, the Israelites. He is depicted as a wild man whose hand is against everyone and everyone's hand is against him, Genesis 16 verse 12. He is also associated with idolatry and opposition to God's plan. The Jewish tradition holds that Ishmael was circumcised at the age of 13, which is why Muslims practice circumcision at that age, while Isaac was circumcised at 8 days old, following God's commandment. The Jewish view of Ishmael is largely negative and dismissive, as he is not part of the chosen lineage of Abraham. In Christianity, Ishmael is also seen as a secondary figure compared to Isaac, who is regarded as the son of promise and the ancestor of Jesus Christ. However, some Christian traditions have a more positive view of Ishmael, recognizing him as a son of Abraham who was blessed by God and became a great nation. Some Christians also interpret Ishmael as a symbol of the Gentiles who are included in God's salvation through faith in Christ. The Christian view of Ishmael is generally more neutral and respectful than the Jewish one, but still subordinate to Isaac. In Islam, Ishmael is revered as a prophet and an ancestor of Muhammad, the final messenger of God. He is also considered as a co-builder of the Kaaba, the sacred house of worship in Mecca, along with his father Abraham. According to Islamic sources, such as the Quran, Hadith, Tafsir and stories of the prophets, Ishmael and Hagar settled in Mecca after their exile from Abraham's household, and God provided them with water from the well of Zamzam. Later, Abraham visited them and tried to sacrifice Ishmael on God's command, but God spared him and provided a ram instead. This event is commemorated by Muslims on Eid al-Adha and during the pilgrimage to Mecca. The Islamic view of Ishmael is highly positive and honorable, as he is part of the noble lineage of Abraham. The Arab tribes were united under Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, who was born in Mecca in the 6th century CE. Muhammad preached the oneness of God, Allah, and called for the rejection of idolatry and polytheism. He faced opposition from his own tribe, the Quraysh, who controlled the Kaaba, the sacred shrine of Mecca. Muhammad and his followers, the Muslims, migrated to Medina in 622 CE, where he established a community, Ummah, based on a constitution that granted rights and duties to all citizens, regardless of their religion or tribe. This event is known as the Hijra and marks the beginning of the Islamic calendar. From Medina, Muhammad waged wars against the Quraysh and other Arab tribes who refused to accept his message. He also sent letters to various rulers, inviting them to Islam. In 630 CE, he conquered Mecca peacefully and cleansed the Kaaba of idols. He died in 632 CE, leaving behind many followers who believed in his prophethood and his revelation, the Quran. After Muhammad's death, his successors, the caliphs, continued to expand the Islamic state through military conquests and diplomacy. The first 4 caliphs are known as the rightly guided caliphs, al-Khulafa al-Rashidun, and ruled from 632 to 661 CE. They were Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman and Ali, all of whom were close companions of Muhammad. Under their leadership, the Muslims defeated the 2 superpowers of the time, the Byzantine and Sassanid empires, and conquered vast territories in Syria, Iraq, Iran, Egypt and North Africa. They also spread Islam to other regions such as Yemen, Oman, Bahrain, Armenia, Azerbaijan and Afghanistan. The Umayyad dynasty succeeded the rightly guided caliphs and ruled from 661 to 750 CE. They moved the capital from Medina to Damascus and established a hereditary monarchy. They expanded the Islamic Empire further west into Spain and Portugal, east into Central Asia and India, and north into Anatolia and the Caucasus. They also faced resistance from various groups such as the Kharijites, who rebelled against their authority, and the Shiites, who supported Ali's descendants as the rightful heirs of Muhammad. The Abbasid dynasty overthrew the Umayyads in 750 CE and ruled until 1258 CE. They moved the capital from Damascus to Baghdad and ushered in a golden age of Islamic civilization. They fostered a culture of learning, art, literature, science and philosophy that influenced many other civilizations. They also faced challenges from internal divisions, external invasions and regional dynasties that challenged their authority. The Arab conquests had a lasting impact on world history. They spread Islam to millions of people across different continents and cultures. They also facilitated trade, communication and exchange of ideas along the Silk Road and other routes. They also contributed to the development of Arabic as a language of religion, science, and literature. The question of whether the Arab nation is the fulfillment of God's promise to Ishmael in Genesis is a matter of faith and interpretation. Some Muslims believe that Ishmael was the ancestor of the Arabs, and that God blessed him with a great nation through Muhammad and his descendants. Some Christians and Jews disagree with this view and argue that Isaac was the chosen son of Abraham and that God's promise was fulfilled through him and his descendants. I personally believe that the coming of Muhammad was the fulfillment of the promise in Genesis. However, many Muslims teach that Muhammad was the last true prophet of God. Many Christians believe prophets are a thing of the past. Personally, I believe that holy men are still here even if few and far between. God still speaks to man. May we all clean our ears to hear.